Welcome to Fabric Monday. Today we'll talk about the new Spark SQL features in the Lakehouse UI. Here we have our Lakehouse. Usually if we want to make a query over the tables of this Lakehouse, either we need to use a notebook or we need to change the analysis to the SQL Analytics endpoint. In the SQL Analytics endpoint we can query the Lakehouse using T-SQL. However, we have a new feature in the Lakehouse. We have the Spark SQL queries. New Spark SQL query. In this way, we don't need to move to the SQL endpoint to make a query over the tables. We can make a query over the tables directly in the Lakehouse. Here, for example. Here, and I can use Spark SQL to query the table. Mind that this is Spark SQL syntax, this is not the SQL syntax, and I can run. And that's it, this is the result of my Spark SQL execution directly over the Lakehouse. Now I don't need the SQL endpoint anymore to make queries, I can make queries directly using Spark SQL if I would like so, if I need to. But we have one more new feature, I can save this query as a view. Let's give a name for this view, VW Customer. Save. This is a view using Spark SQL. We couldn't save a view using Spark SQL before. And that's it, the view is created and we can see the view listed here together, the tables. VW Customer, a Spark SQL view in the Lakehouse in the middle of the tables. Okay, but we could create views before. Yes, we could create views before in the SQL endpoint, but those would be T-SQL views and the notebook were not capable to access that. A Spark SQL view is created directly in the Lakehouse and the notebook can access this view. On the opposite, the SQL endpoint cannot access the Spark SQL views. But how is the definition of this view is stored? Every table here we know they have folder. Inside the folder of this schema, and the view. The view is not materialized. Yes, it's not a materialized view. How is this view stored? Let's discover this. The view is stored as a file inside the Lakehouse. The Lakehouse identifies folders as schemas or tables, but the file is identified as being a view definition. We can see the location, Lakehouse, the full table, the schema and the view name. And we can read this file. This file is compressed and is in JSON format. We can read this file and retrieve the SQL definition from this file. Let's try. And there it is, the SQL definition. In fact, there are two SQL definitions which are extracted from the JSON. There is the original SQL definition in the way I wrote it, and there is the resolved SQL definition. What's the difference? The resolved SQL definition translates the table name to a full qualified table name, and it stores in this way. The view is executed using the resolved definition. But what we are discovering here is that we can manipulate the file with the view definition. Today, the UI doesn't allow us to retrieve the view definition, but we can do this, manipulating the file of the view definition directly in a notebook. And of course, we can also read the view. A simple select over the view. And here it is, the result of the select over the view. In this way, now we have a new powerful feature to create Spark SQL views and use them in our medallion architecture. Thank you very much for watching and see you next week.